The NBA offseason is completely off the rails, and there's nothing more NBA offseason than Russ Westbrook being dealt on the same night that he's hosting a comedy pop-up show in Tulsa. So, what was my initial reaction to that trade? Well, I picked my jaw up off the ground, and then I started to applaud, standing. Daryl Morey is an absolute legend. I don't know how the trade's going to ultimately work out, but I know this much. Morey is not afraid. In fact, he's got a big brass set, and things are never boring with that guy around. Now, in terms of the trade, they're definitely different, but are they better? And if so, how much better? Are they championship better? At this point, exactly what are they getting in a 30-something Russell Westbrook? I don't know. I really don't know. In fact, this may not even be about wanting Russell Westbrook as it is about wanting to get Chris Paul the hell out of town. I mean, how badly did they want to ditch Paul that they moved him for a guy who has an even longer contract, is also on the wrong side of 30, is not what he used to be, cannot shoot a three no matter what, and may or may not even fit with the beard. And they throw in a boatload of picks to make it happen when there really was no market whatsoever for Westbrook. So, why did Daryl Morey, one of the smartest guys ever, give up that much to get Westbrook? Because he wasn't giving up that much to get Westbrook. He did it to get rid of Chris Paul. Because as much as Morey said there were not problems between Paul and Harden, obviously there were. There were problems between Paul and Harden, like there were problems between Paul and Blake Griffin. Just like there will be problems between Paul and his new OKC teammates. Or problems between Paul and Jimmy Butler when he ultimately ends up in Miami. Obviously, Houston was not big enough for CP3 and the beard. And if one of them had to go, it sure as hell was not going to be the beard. Happy trails, Chris. Just don't get too comfortable in OKC because you're probably not going to stay there. You can take what's left of your talents to South Beach. Just do not get on the wrong side of Jimmy Butler because you know buckets ain't having it. Now back to this issue of fit. The issue of fit with Harden and Westbrook. Yes, Harden and Russ like each other. Yes, they played together back in the day. But just because it worked back then does not mean it's going to work right now. They're different dudes. They're different players now than they were when James Harden was coming off the bench for the Thunder. And just because they like each other does not mean their games are going to mesh. They might not, especially when you consider both these guys need to dominate the rock, have extremely high usage rates, and are going to be in the same backcourt. I mean, don't get it twisted. Chris Paul had to go. There was no way they bring that guy back. But that doesn't mean that they're better with Westbrook than they were with Paul. They're different. Slightly younger, a lot more athletic, different, but I'm not sure they're better. And if they are better, how much better? Fact is, it may not work. It may not work. Of course, Daryl Morey is betting that it will. Morey's doing what he always does, getting the best talent he can possibly get, regardless of fit, and then trusting that it's ultimately going to work out. Which is why this guy is a legend. He's relentless. He's fearless. He's going to keep doing anything and everything he can in order to win a ring, which I love. My only regret here is that he had to trade Westbrook and Paul for each other. As much as Paul and Harden couldn't stand playing for each other, imagine how awesome it would have been to add Westbrook to that mix. Three dudes, then, who have to dominate the ball. Three guys who are extremely headstrong and do not want to guard anybody. With two of them on the verge of aging out and not being what they used to be. You imagine those three dudes in the same locker room and on the same bench, all trying to share the same basketball. It would have been the best thing ever. But then again, as always, if something seems too good to be true, generally it is. And as good as Morey is, he's not that good. You couldn't find a way to get them all three on the same team at the same time. But, man, that would have been the best thing ever. I'm looking forward to seeing Russ do Russ things with the Rockets. I just would have liked it a hell of a lot more if Chris Paul were still there to piss the other two guys off. Oh, one more thought about Daryl. No, freaking Daryl. Freaking Daryl, a dude who loves to mix it up on Twitter, is almost trolling all of us, right? I mean, what are the two universal thought processes from everybody online about the association? Go ahead, fire up Twitter. Look it up. What are the two things that everybody always says as it relates to them? Mike D'Antoni and Russ Westbrook will never, ever win a world championship. Why? Because Mike's system doesn't work in the postseason, and Russ only has one gear. How many millions of times have you seen those two things pushed out over Twitter or any kind of social? But then again, Daryl knows this. Daryl Morey knows this. He's on social. He sees it. He's always been one to go up against supposed conventional wisdom, so he just went legend by doubling down. He's got both these guys in the same place at the same time when neither one of them are ever supposed to win at all. That trade is not the start of the Chris Paul era in OKC, right? It's the start of the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander era in OKC. Chris Paul just happens to be there, at least right now. So what that means is either Chris Paul is going to be playing out the string on a team that's not good enough to make noise in the playoffs, or they'll get a great pick in the lottery. Or he'll get flipped again, and OKC Chris Paul jerseys will feel like Mike Piazza Marlins jerseys. I mean, seeing Paul on the Thunder would be about as hilarious as watching Rockets fans kill Westbrook and say that his triple-doubles are empty stats, only to double back a week later when he's on their team and say they're the most important numbers in the world, and evidence that he's still a killer. Listen, in defense of Chris Paul, he's been a hell of a player, and the Rockets don't have the last 2 years that they had without him. They don't come as close as they did to the finals without Chris Paul. That's a fact. And just because all those reports after the season make him look horrible doesn't mean that bringing him to Houston was a mistake. But again, if he was getting bent about how the league's reigning MVP played and on a team that had a legitimate chance at a world championship, imagine how much of a pain in the ass he might be on a full-blown rebuild when he's playing nothing or for nothing but a paycheck. But understand the thing about all these draft picks. They're just draft picks. Even as many as he has, they're just draft picks. I know they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the Clippers, and they're pumped. I get that. But 2 first-round picks in every draft from now until the end of time does not guarantee anything at all. The only guarantee you get from those picks is that you're getting those picks. When Presti has had top 5 picks, he has crushed it. Durant, Westbrook, Harden. I mean, you can't get any better than that for hit rate on top 5 picks. But once those picks fall outside the top 5, things do get dicier. Like, hello, Mitch McGary, Cameron Payne, Perry Jones. For every Serge Ibaka and Steven Adams, there are a few Dakari Johnsons and Magnum Rolls. Well, actually, there's only one Magnum Roll. There will only ever be one Magnum Roll. That's an all-world name right there. OKC fans have to hope that Presti will find more guys with Magnum Roll's name, but somebody else's game. And for real, could you imagine already purchasing your season tickets for the 2019-20 season, expecting Russ and PG-13, and getting this?